All right. So, looking at this article, yesterday we finished up the bibliography. Has a very detailed video here for you to be able to go over exactly what the bibliography should look like. We also did that in class. But in case you did not get it finished or you need some extra help, the video is there. So, getting into the article, it says, "What teens need most from their parents? As adolescents navigate the stormiest years in their development, they need coaching, support, good examples, and most of all, understanding." Now, coaching doesn't necessarily mean sports, it just means coaching in life, understanding what you're responsible for. Again, just hit that X to exit out. You should be able to see the full article. You can listen to this article as well if you'd like. I'm essentially going to do the same thing with some talking points in here as well. The teenage years can be mystifying for parents. Sensible children turn scatterbrained or start having wild mood swings. Formerly level headed adolescents ride in cars with dangerous drivers or take other foolish risks. Remember, we talked about the reason why this happens, why your brain is driven to make these decisions. Okay. It literally is the way your brain is developing, it's where the development happens. And as you grow, the brain doesn't grow quite as quickly. So remember that stimulus response is higher, the emotional response is higher, and that brain control on the right side by your temple is limited. It still hasn't developed quite as quickly. So a flood of new research offers explanations for some of these mysteries. Brain imaging adds another kind of data that can help test hypotheses and corroborate teens' own accounts of their behavior and emotions. Dozens of recent multi year studies have traced adolescent development through time, rather than comparing sets of adolescents at a single point. The new longitudinal research is changing scientists' view on the role parents play in helping children navigate a volatile decade. So, during your teenage years, from the time you're 10, and, well, 11, 10 and 11 to almost 20, longitudinal research, so across that spectrum, is starting to show how parents can help you during these difficult times. One scene is a time for parents to step back. Adolescence is increasingly viewed as an opportunity to stay tuned in and emotionally connected. So, this article is probably going to argue parents should be more involved than what they have been in the past of letting teens be more independent and figuring everything out on their own. Right or wrong? That's what the article is stating. Okay. So, again, you're doing research to find out, can parents be too supportive? Can parents go too far in supporting their child too much? Okay. Again, the argument that we're having is right here in the description for you. Right? Can parents go too far in supporting their children's dreams? And there's two different sides you can take. Okay, it's still in the directions for you. The research makes it possible to identify four important phases in the development of intellectual, social, and emotional skills that most teens will experience at certain ages. Here's a guide to the latest findings. Ages 11 to 12. As puberty takes center stage, tweens can actually slip backward in some basic skills. Spatial learning and certain kinds of reasoning may decline at this stage, studies show. Parts of the brain responsible for perspective, memory, or remembering what you are supposed to do in the future are still maturing. This may be why a teen may seem clueless if asked to give the teacher a note from school. So, again, you can actually move backwards because of the way your brain is developing. Probably that emotional center developing takes over, and that the idea of having a perspective and a prospective memory fades away. Coaching tweens and organizational skills can help. Parents can help build memory cues into daily routines, such as placing a gym bag by the front door or helping set reminders on a cell phone. They can share helpful tools, such as task manager apps. Parents can help foster sound decision making, thinking through pros and cons and considering other viewpoints. Children who know by age 10 or 11 how to make sound decisions tend to exhibit less anxiety and sadness, get in fewer fights, and have fewer problems with friends at ages 12 and 13, according to a 2014 study. Now, you can click on this and actually see the study. It'll also be referenced here in a moment, or a different study will be referenced here in a moment. But you can click on those and actually see them. Okay. So, according to a 2014 study of 76 participants published in the Journal of Behavioral Decision Making, okay, by remaining warm and supportive, Parents may be able to influence the way their teens' brain develops at this stage. Another study of 188 students compared the effect of mothers who were warm, affectionate, and approving during disagreements versus mothers who became angry and argumentative. Teens at age 16 who had affectionate moms when they were 12 showed brain changes linked to lower rates of sadness and anxiety and greater self control, according to the study led by researchers at the University of Melbourne in Australia. It's an interesting study. It's a very myopic study, so it's just looking at one specific thing. Just interesting to look at. Okay. Ages 13 to 14. Parents should brace themselves for what is often a wildly emotional passage. This is the stage where you guys are at. It's exactly where you're at. Okay. So you have a perspective on this. Young teens become sensitive to peers' opinions and react strongly to them. Yet the social skills that need to figure out what their peers really think won't be fully mature for years, making this a confusing and potentially miserable time. So your peers' opinions, the way they react to you is very strong, but you don't know how to deal with them. Neither do your peers. So you're just kind of pinballing off each other, right? You're just bouncing off each other. At about this time, teens' response to stress goes haywire, sparking more door slamming and tears. The impact of social stress is peaking around that time. Of adults with mental disorders often triggered by stress, 50% received a diagnosis before age 15. Other research shows teens from ages 11 to 15 become sad and anxious when subjected to social stresses, such exclusion from social groups, while adults don't show a similar effect. Again, interesting study. It's a very one sided approach to it, but it does show there's a diagnosis connection from when you're diagnosed at 15 that the disorders seem to stay around when you're an adult, which would kind of make sense if you're diagnosed as a teenager, but it's worth thinking about. Parts of the brain most vulnerable to stress are still maturing, so coping strategies teens use at this stage can become ingrained in the brain's circuitry as lifelong patterns. According to a 2016 research review and developmental science review, psychologists advise teaching and modeling self soothing skills such as meditation, exercise, or listening to music. So, the way they're telling parents to help deal with this is coach them on when to take a break, coach them on how to manage with exercise, with listening to music, finding things that are actually healthy coping skills to deal with what you have going on between the ages 11, 12, 13, and 14, helping kids stay organized. Okay, so that is parental involvement. It's just very different of thinking that it doesn't have to be yelling, right? Or it doesn't have to be, well, you need to do this to be successful. It is literally showing them how to be successful. Coach teens on friendship skills, including how to read their peers' expressions and body language. Encourage them to choose friends based on shared interests, not popularity, and to dump friends who are unkind. So, to pick friends who are nice to you, pick friends that you have things in common with, that you like to do things with. It's okay if those are your closest friends, that you have shared interests. They may not be super popular. That's okay. If they're good people, they're kind to you, they're recommending that. That's what parents should have kids looking for. Teach them how to repair friendships after a fight by apologizing, making amends, or compromising. Family support is a stress buffer. Teens whose families provide companionship, problem solving, and emotional support are less likely to become depressed after exposure to severe stress. And I don't believe it's saying companionship like be their friend. I think it's showing to be a parent, support your children by showing them, coaching them how to get through difficult situations. Okay. Ages 15 to 16. Teens' appetite for risk taking peaks at this age. Oddly enough, it's also about the time you start driving, right? More than 200 participants, ages 8 to 27, led by researchers in Leiden University in the Netherlands. The brain's reward receptors are blossoming. We've talked about this, right? The stimulus response, those reward centers are full go. Your emotional centers, full go. It's amplifying adolescents' response to dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with feelings of pleasure and satisfaction. So while your emotional centers growing, it reacts quicker to, you get more dopamine in that time, the part that makes you feel better. This makes thrill seeking more desirable than it ever will be again. Normal feels of danger are temporarily suppressed during adolescence, a shift scientists believe is rooted in an evolutionary need to leave home and explore new habitats. You are driven to go explore, to be different, to find something new. Studies have found adolescents fail to change their appraisal of risky situations even after being warned that those hazards are greater than they expected. The ability to make and keep friends is especially useful at this stage. Teens with friends that trust and count on for support are less likely to engage in risky behavior such as shoplifting, riding with a dangerous driver, or having unprotected sex, according to a 2015 study of 46 teens led by Dr. Eva Telser. So when they have a good friend group, people that you trust, people that have common interests, people that are similar to you, you tend to make less gambles. It is not too late for warm, supportive parents to make a difference. So parents should still be supportive during this time. Okay. It goes on to continue to say the closeness to parents included having parents respect and help talking through problems and an absence of arguing or yelling, according to the study in which Dr. Telser was a co-author. Okay. So she used her own study to prove her own facts. Now, between the ages of 17 and 18, the benefits of teenage brains' ability to change and develop are evident at this stage. Some teens have increases in IQ. Intellectually gifted teens are more likely to attain gains in IQ scores, so teens who are already smart are likely to grow even smarter. Okay, so even your brain is growing at a higher process. In older teens, the parts of the prefrontal cortex responsible for judgment and decision making typically are developed enough to serve as a brake on a runaway emotions and risk taking. So you start to put these things in place yourself. You start to figure out strategies, problem solving, and planning strategies to continue to develop at this age, at least into the age of 20. Now, that doesn't mean parents should just pull back. It even says at this stage, teens are better at noticing how others feel and showing empathy. They still lack the ability to decipher people's motives and attitudes in complex social situations, though such as figuring out why a friend might suddenly change the subject during a conversation at a party. It doesn't say just to pull back from parents, but it doesn't say that they should be the ones leading the charge. It should be the older teen. Okay. That's the end of our article. Remember to find evidence for both sides, your claim and your counterclaim. Okay. Um, Remember, your claim can be parents can go too far in supporting their children's dreams. Then your counterclaim would be parents cannot go too far in supporting their children's dream. And it can be the reverse. All right. Make sure that you are finding good evidence. The evidence can support both sides. It can show both sides. That's what's interesting about an argument you can have. You can use the evidence two ways. Okay. If you have questions, concerns, let me know.